The two empty velvet chairs in the front row of the chapel told me everything my parents refused to say out loud. They were not stuck in traffic. They had not lost their way. They had simply chosen to erase my wedding day because I committed the unforgivable crime of marrying before my perfect sister. That was the moment I realized my family did not love me. They only loved the polished image we sold to the world. But to understand how those empty seats destroyed our family, we have to go back to where the static first began. The October air outside the historic stone chapel near Boston was crisp and sharp. A cold breeze swept across the coast, carrying the salty tang of the Atlantic and the faint scent of burning autumn leaves. Inside, light filtered through stained glass, casting deep red and amber shadows across the dark wooden pews. The soft melody of a string quartet echoed off the stone walls, but it could not warm the icy void at the front of the room. 35 guests sat quietly, their eyes darting nervously toward the vacant front row. My mother had sent a single text message 3 hours earlier. "Your father and I must accompany Sienna to the Vance family gala tonight. You understand how important this is for our legacy." On Instagram, a fresh notification popped up on my phone. My mother had posted a photo under the blinding crystal chandeliers of a downtown ballroom. Sienna stood between my parents, draped in a shimmering emerald gown, smiling radiant for 200,000 followers. My mother's caption read, "Honoring the moments that truly matter." I locked my phone, pulled the white lace of my dress over my trembling hands, and took a deep breath. Beside me stood Jackson Reed. Jax did not wear a custom tuxedo. He wore a simple navy suit, his hands calloused from years of pulling electrical wire and fixing circuit boards. His dark eyes were steady, calm, and solid as granite. When he reached out and squeezed my hand, the rough texture of his palm grounded me. "Look at me, Piper," Jax whispered, his voice low and smooth. "We are here for us. Nobody else." We exchanged our vows under the soft glow of candlelight, 43 rain-soaked miles away. My family was selling a lie. Right here, in this quiet sanctuary, I was finally stepping into something real. 2 weeks after the wedding, the noise of the ocean faded back into the background of daily life. Jax and I moved into a small, weathered apartment in Quincy. The floorboards creaked underfoot, and the scent of fresh paint and lavender soap filled our living room. It was humble, but it was ours. No polished facades, no staged photographs. As a freelance bookkeeper, my life revolved around precision. I spent my days staring at financial ledgers, tracking line items for local bakeries and neighborhood coffee shops. Numbers never lied. They did not have moods. They did not hold grudges, and they did not play favorites. On a quiet Tuesday evening, I sat at my wooden desk with a steaming mug of black coffee. The bitter aroma filled the room as I opened my laptop to perform my routine quarterly check on my personal credit report. It was a habit drilled into me during my accounting courses, a simple measure to ensure my financial health remained secure. The screen is loaded. My eyes scan the dashboard, expecting the usual green credit score indicator. Instead, a bright red alert flashed across the top of the screen. My credit score had plunged over 200 points into the gutter. My breath caught in my throat. My heart hammered against my ribs, a fast, hollow thud that echoed in my ears. I clicked on the detailed liabilities tab. There it was. A commercial business mortgage for $350,000, issued 6 months ago to Miller and Company. Floral, my parents' high-end wedding flower business. The account was 90 days past due. The lender had flagged the file for immediate collections, and right next to my father's name, listed as the primary personal cosigner and financial guarantor, was my own, Piper Finch. I stared at the screen until the black text blurred into dark spots. My fingers grew ice cold. I had never signed a commercial loan document in my life. I had never stepped foot inside a commercial bank with my father to pledge my personal assets. I opened the digital copy of the filed loan agreement attached to the credit bureau's portal. The document was 20 pages long. I scrolled directly to the final signature page. There, stamped beneath an official notary seal, was my name written in dark blue ink. The letters were stiff. The loop of the P was drawn too slowly, as if someone had placed a piece of tracing paper over my driver's license and carefully drawn my signature line by line. It was a forgery, a cold, deliberate fraud executed right from my childhood home. A wave of nausea hit me. The air in the room felt thick, heavy with the metallic tang of fear. My mind raced back through the years, searching for the crack in the foundation that I had missed for so long. Then I remembered. 10 years ago, on my 18th birthday, my grandmother had passed away, leaving me a separate inheritance trust of $150,000 meant for my college education, or my first home. My father, Garrick Miller, had sat me down in his mahogany-paneled office. He had slid a document across the desk, a limited power of attorney form, claiming it was a routine administrative paper, so he could handle my tuition payments directly. I was young, grieving, and naive. I had signed it without reading the fine print, trusting the man who raised me. He had not just taken my trust fund. He had kept that signed paper in his steel safe for a decade, waiting for the moment he needed to use my name to save his failing business. My parents had not missed my wedding because they were busy. They had stayed away because they knew what they had done. They needed me isolated, silent, and obedient for just a little longer until the money cleared. I placed my hands flat on the cold wooden desk to stop them from shaking. Outside, heavy rain began to lash against the glass window pane. In the adjacent room, the soft hum of Jax's wire-stripping tools stopped. Jax walked into the office, carrying a brass desk lamp he had just rewired. He took one look at my pale face and set the lamp down on the floor. "Piper," he asked, his voice sharp with concern. "What is it?" I did not cry. I did not scream. Something fundamental inside me shifted, hardened, and locked into place like a steel deadbolt. The quiet, timid girl who had spent 28 years begging for a crumb of her parents' affection died, right there, at that desk. I turned the laptop screen toward him. "My father didn't just abandon my wedding, Jax," I said, my voice steady and cold as winter ice. "He stole my name." The next morning, the rain had stopped, leaving Boston wrapped in a thick, gray fog. The air smelled of damp earth and exhaust fumes as I pushed open the heavy glass doors of First New England Bank. Inside, the grand lobby was quiet, filled with the sterile scent of floor wax and cold air conditioning. Marble pillars towered over marble floors, echoing every single step I took. I sat in a small office across from a senior bank representative named Mr. Harrison. He wore a crisp, gray suit and thin gold wire glasses. I handed him my driver's license and the printout of my credit report. "I need the full transactional history for the Margaret Bennett Independence Trust," I said, my voice steady. "And every document related to the loan for Miller and Company. Floral." Mr. Harrison typed on his keyboard. The sharp click-clack of plastic keys filled the small room. He looked at the screen, adjusted his glasses, and frowned. He stepped out of the office for 10 minutes and returned with a thick manila folder. He placed 6 withdrawal slips on the polished mahogany table between us. "These transactions began 24 months ago," Mr. Harrison explained, pointing a silver pen at the paper. "All 6 wire transfers emptied the remaining $150,000 from your trust account. They were authorized under a limited power of attorney filed 10 years ago." I pulled the papers closer. My eyes scanned the ink. The original document was signed on my 18th birthday in my father's mahogany office. He had told me it was a routine form to pay my college tuition directly, but the fine print gave him unrestricted access to transfer funds to any account linked to his name. The bank statements showed exactly where my grandmother's money had gone. The first transfer of $50,000 went straight to a luxury auto dealership to purchase a white Mercedes-Benz SUV for my sister, Sienna. The second and third transfers, totaling $100,000, were wired to a commercial real estate firm to secure a prime retail storefront on Newberry Street for Miller and Company. Floral. My father had not used my money for my education or my future. He had used my grandmother's legacy as a personal piggy bank to finance Sienna's lifestyle as a fashion influencer. He needed her to look wealthy online, so she could land a rich husband from the Vance family. And the $350,000 commercial loan. I asked, staring at the bank officer. That loan was approved 6 months ago, Mr. Harrison said softly. Your father submitted a financial statement using your name as a primary guarantor. The file included a scanned copy of your state ID and a notarized signature page. The notary stamp belonged to a former receptionist at your father's shop. He slid the signature page toward me. The blue ink was fresh, but the signature was an obvious copy. Someone had held my signature up to a light box and traced it onto the line. I never authorized these transfers, I said, looking Mr. Harrison dead in the eye. And I never signed this loan agreement. This is fraud. Mr. Harrison shifted uncomfortably in his leather chair. Miss Finch, because the power of attorney was active, the bank processed these requests in good faith. If you claim forgery on the loan guarantee, you will need to file a formal fraud report with the police and initiate a legal dispute. I will do whatever it takes, I said. 3 hours later, my mother called. She asked to meet me at a high-end coffee shop near Newberry Street. The cafe smelled of roasted espresso beans, steamed milk, and expensive perfume. Soft jazz played from overhead speakers. Vivian Miller sat at a corner table, looking flawless in a cream cashmere sweater and pearl earrings. Her blonde hair was styled in smooth waves. She took a delicate sip from her porcelain cup as I sat down across from her. She did not offer a hug. She did not ask about my new apartment or my marriage to Jax. Your father told me you called the bank today, Piper. My mother began, her tone light and casual, as if discussing the autumn weather. You really shouldn't be poking around in old business accounts. It creates unnecessary confusion for the accountants. Dad stole my trust fund, Mom, I said, keeping my hands folded on the table. He wiped out $150,000 that Grandma left for me. And he forged my name on a $350,000 commercial loan that is now 90 days past due. My mother set her cup down on the saucer with a sharp ceramic clink. Her blue eyes narrowed, her face hardening into a cold, polished mask. Don't use such dramatic language, Piper, she said, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper. No one stole anything from you. We are a family. Everything we do is for the collective future of Miller and Company. You bought Sienna a luxury car with my money, I said. You paid for her boutique lease while my credit score was ruined. My mother leaned forward, bringing the scent of heavy rose perfume with her. You are a freelance bookkeeper, Piper. You work from home. You make a modest living, and you married a man who fixes electrical wires for a paycheck. You don't need a massive capital reserve, but your sister is building a brand. She is on the verge of marrying Harrison Vance. So, my life doesn't matter? I asked. Don't play the victim. My mother snapped, tapping her manicured red fingernail on the glass tabletop. If Sienna marries into the Vance family, it elevates all of us. Their family foundation controls millions in commercial real estate. When Sienna succeeds, the entire family succeeds. Your father was just managing our assets strategically. I stared at my mother, seeing her clearly for the first time in my life. She and my father were trapped in a classic sunk cost fallacy. They had invested so much money, time, and pride into building Sienna's perfect image that they could not stop. They had to keep pouring money into her, even if it meant stealing from their other daughter. They hated my independence because my self-reliance proved that their favorite child was entirely fake. I want my money returned, I said coldly, and I want my name removed from that $350,000 loan by the end of the month. My mother laughed, a short, bitter sound. You always were so petty and calculating, Piper. Always counting pennies while your sister aimed for the stars. If you try to sabotage your sister's happiness over some paperwork, you will destroy this family. And I promise you, no one will take your side. She stood up, pulled her leather gloves over her hands, and left a $10 bill on the table. She walked out of the cafe without looking back once. I sat alone as the cold espresso turned bitter in my cup. The waiter came by and cleared her empty saucer. Outside the window, the traffic crawled along the avenue, oblivious to the quiet destruction inside. I took out my black leather notebook and opened it to a fresh page. The white paper was crisp and smooth under my fingertips. I clicked my silver pen and wrote 3 words at the top of the page in bold, dark ink: Project Financial Audit. My parents thought I was just a quiet girl who played with numbers in a small apartment. They thought my silence was a weakness, but they had forgotten one crucial detail. I was an accountant. I knew how to follow the money, I knew how to find the receipts, and I knew exactly how to balance the ledger. I closed the notebook, slipped it into my bag, and walked out into the chilly Boston air. The fog was finally beginning to lift. The shift did not happen in a single dramatic moment. It began with small, deliberate choices made every single day. I stopped waiting for my parents to apologize. I stopped staring at the empty chairs from my wedding photo. Instead, I poured my energy into rebuilding my body, my mind, and my professional arsenal. Every morning at 6 o'clock, the harsh alarm buzzed. I pulled on my athletic shoes and hit the cold pavement along the Quincy coastline. The sharp sea air burned my lungs, washing away the stagnant air of regret. I started attending high-intensity Pilates classes 3 times a week. My muscles ached, but the physical discipline replaced the emotional numbness. I cut my long, dull hair into a sharp, shoulder-length bob and traded my oversized sweaters for tailored blazers in deep navy and charcoal gray. When I looked in the bathroom mirror, the tired, timid girl was gone. Standing there was a woman who looked capable, focused, and dangerous. I also invested in my mind. I enrolled in an intensive 8-week forensic accounting and financial investigation certificate program. Every night after finishing my freelance client work, I sat at my desk under the warm glow of an LED lamp. The air smelled of sharp black tea and crisp paper. I studied advanced asset tracing, digital audit trails, and corporate tax fraud. The complex spreadsheets that used to intimidate me now looked like simple puzzles waiting to be solved. Jax supported every step of my transformation. He never tried to fight my battles for me, but he made sure I never fought alone. His hands, rough and calloused from a long day of wiring electrical panels, gently squeezed my shoulder whenever I stayed up past midnight. "You have the brain for this, Piper," Jax said one evening, placing a hot plate of grilled chicken and roasted vegetables beside my keyboard. "I handle high-voltage wires. One wrong connection, and the whole system sparks. Your parents made a bad connection when they crossed you. Now, you just have to flip the breaker." Jax used his technical expertise to help me secure my digital life. He installed an encrypted network in our apartment, set up 2-factor authentication on every account, and helped me format a secure external hard drive. He also fitted a tiny, high-definition audio recorder inside my leather jacket pocket, a sleek device with a noise-canceling microphone that could capture crystal-clear sound through thick fabric. For 3 intense weeks, I operated like a silent auditor. I gathered every scrap of evidence available. First, I reached out to an old colleague who worked at a local probate firm. Together, we pulled public court filings, property deeds, and tax assessments for Miller and Company. Floral. I spent hours cross-referencing bank transaction logs against corporate filings. The numbers told a filthy story. My father's business was a hollow shell. The $350,000 commercial loan had not been used to buy inventory or pay staff. Over $100,000 had been transferred directly into Sienna's personal account to cover her influencer expenses, designer handbags, luxury trips to Miami, and fake follower engagement packages. Another $150,000 had gone toward paying overdue property taxes on my parents' primary residence to prevent a tax lien. My father was running a classic shell game, moving debt from one pocket to another while using my forged name as a safety net. Worse, I uncovered a pattern of systematic tax evasion. My father had been underreporting cash transactions from high-end wedding clients for over 3 years, hiding the income in offshore merchant accounts while claiming massive business losses. Working alongside my attorney, Amelia Cross, a sharp, no-nonsense trust litigation specialist, I compiled a 50-page forensic audit report. The pages were neatly bound in a black leather folder. Attached to the back were official bank statements, certified copies of my forged signature, notary registration logs, and tax discrepancy sheets. Amelia reviewed the dossier in her downtown office. The room smelled of old leather books and fresh printing toner. She flipped through the pages, her pen tapping a steady rhythm against the wooden desk. "This is airtight, Piper," Amelia said, raising her eyes. "The signature forgery alone gives us grounds for immediate civil fraud claims. Combined with the unauthorized power of attorney transfers, we can file an emergency motion to freeze their business accounts and nullify your loan guarantee under fraudulent conveyance laws. But if we file this in court, your father will face financial ruin and potentially criminal charges." "He made his choice when he put my name on that loan," I replied, my voice calm and devoid of anger. "He sacrificed me to build a fantasy for Sienna. I am just balancing the books." 2 days later, an elegant cream envelope arrived in our mailbox. It was a formal invitation to Sienna and Harrison Vance's VIP engagement gala at the Grand Ballroom of the Intercontinental Hotel in downtown Boston. My mother had attached a short, handwritten note. "We need your present on Saturday night." The Vance family requested a complete family portrait for the Boston Globe Society page. "Wear something appropriate, and do not ruin this for your sister." They did not want me there as a daughter. They wanted me as a prop. They needed my silent presence in the frame to prove to the wealthy Vance family that the Millers were a united, stable, and prosperous dynasty. Jax walked up behind me, looking over my shoulder at the gold embossed card. "Are we going?" he asked quietly. I held the heavy card in my hand, feeling the raised gold letters under my thumb. Then I walked over to my desk and picked up the sleek black folder containing the audit report. "Yes, we are going," I said, looking at Jax with a quiet, unwavering smile. I've spent 28 years sitting in the background of their family portrait. It's time to tear down the canvas. The grand ballroom of the Intercontinental Hotel hummed with the sound of laughter, clinking champagne flutes, and live violin music. The air smelled of expensive lilies, roasted duck, and sweet vanilla perfume. Over 150 wealthy guests, city officials, and society reporters filled the room under massive crystal chandeliers that cast a warm, golden glow across the marble floor. Sienna stood near the center stage, wearing a strapless ivory gown, her diamonds sparkling under the bright lights. Beside her stood Harrison Vance, looking polished in a dark tux. My parents, Garrick and Vivian Miller, moved through the crowd like royalty, beaming as they accepted congratulations from Boston's elite. I walked into the ballroom, wearing my tailored dark navy dress. My hair fell in a sharp, sleek bob, and my posture was straight and firm. Jax walked beside me in a sharp black suit. His steady presence felt like an anchor. He held a leather briefcase containing my bound forensic audit report, while the tiny audio recorder sat active inside my jacket pocket. 10 minutes before the formal announcements, my father caught my eye. He signaled sharply with his head, pointing toward a secluded VIP conference room off the main hallway. "Stay here," I whispered to Jax. "I'm right outside the door." Jax replied, his voice calm and solid. I stepped into the quiet room. The heavy oak door shut behind me, instantly cutting off the music from the ballroom. My father stood near a polished glass table, his face flushed and his eyes tight with tension. He did not smile. He did not ask how I was. "You actually showed up," Garrick said, stepping closer. The smell of scotch and cigar smoke hung heavy on his breath. He pulled a thick paper document from his coat pocket and slammed it onto the glass table. "We don't have much time. Sign this immediately." I looked down at the document. It was an amended financial release form. Signing it would officially validate my father's forged signatures, forgive the $150,000 stolen from my trust fund, and confirm my personal liability for the $350,000 commercial loan. "No," I said, my voice steady and quiet. My father's jaw clenched. He stepped directly into my personal space, towering over me. His voice dropped into a harsh, threatening growl. "Listen to me, you ungrateful girl. Tonight, the Vance family is announcing a $5 million real estate partnership with Miller and Company. If you ruin this event with your petty jealousy, I will destroy your reputation in this city. Sign the paper. Cover the loan until the deal closes, or you are no longer part of this family." "You already erased me, Dad," I replied, staring straight into his angry eyes. "You erased me the moment you forged my name." I turned on my heel and walked out of the room, leaving him standing alone by the glass table. At 8 o'clock, the lights in the main ballroom dimmed. My father stepped up to the podium on the main stage, adjusting the microphone. My mother and Sienna stood beside him, smiling radiantly for the camera flashes. Harrison Vance and his father, Richard Vance, stood nearby in the front row. "Welcome, friends and honored guests," Garrick's voice echoed loudly through the surround sound speakers. "Tonight, we celebrate family, legacy, and new beginnings. Miller and Company has always been built on trust and unity, and I am proud to say that both of my daughters have given their full support to secure our future expansion." The crowd applauded politely. In fact, Garrick continued, smiling brightly, "My youngest daughter, Piper, a talented accountant, is here tonight. She has personally pledged her financial backing to help lead us into this brilliant new chapter." He pointed toward me in the crowd, expecting me to smile, wave, and play my role in his performance. Instead, I stepped out from the shadows and walked straight toward the stage. The room fell quiet. Guests turned their heads, watching me. Jax moved swiftly toward the media control booth at the back of the hall. With a quick, practice motion, he plugged a high-speed flash drive into the main projector system. I reached the stage and stepped right up to the second microphone. "Thank you, Garrick," I said clearly. The microphone amplified my voice across the entire ballroom. "But let's set the record straight for the investors in this room." My father's smile froze. "Piper, sit down," he muttered under his breath, reaching out to grab my arm. I stepped back, out of his reach, and gestured toward the massive projection screen behind the stage. The bright screen flickered. The promotional video of Sienna's floral designs vanished. In its place appeared a crisp, high-resolution scan of my grandmother's trust fund statement, followed immediately by my forged loan guarantee document. Gasps rippled through the audience. 14 months ago, I said, my voice cutting through the silent room like a razor. $150,000 was illegally transferred out of my inheritance trust without my consent. It was used to buy luxury vehicles and pay storefront leases. 6 months ago, my signature was forged on a $350,000 commercial mortgage for Miller and Company. Floral, a loan that is currently 90 days past due. Turn that off. Shut it down now. Garrick screamed, lunging toward the AV desk. The technicians did not move. Jack stood in front of the control console, his massive frame blocking the access panel. On the screen, zoomed-in forensic analysis slides highlighted the forged letters of my signature alongside certified notary fraud reports. Below that, line-by-line audit sheets revealed systematic tax evasion and hidden offshore accounts. Richard Vance stepped forward, his face dark with rage. Garrick, what is the meaning of this? She's lying. She's mentally unstable, my mother cried out, stepping toward the front of the stage, her hands shaking as tears ruined her heavy makeup. She's jealous of her sister. Am I asked softly. I tapped a button on my wireless remote. The speakers hummed with static for a brief second. Then, a crystal-clear audio recording filled the grand ballroom. It was my father's voice from 10 minutes ago, recorded inside the VIP room. Listen to me, you ungrateful girl. Sign the paper. Cover the loan until the deal closes, or you are no longer part of this family. The room descended into utter chaos. Reporters raised their cameras, flashes blinding the stage. Investors pulled out their phones, frantically calling their legal teams. Harrison Vance looked at Sienna with complete disgust. He slowly pulled the diamond engagement ring from his pocket, placed it heavily on a nearby cocktail table, and walked away without saying a single word. Sienna shrieked, dropping to her knees on the stage, her polished world crumbling in front of 150 people. My father stood frozen under the harsh stage lights, his face red, his chest heaving, his fake empire shattered into dust. I lowered my microphone, turned my back on the stage, and walked down the aisle. Jax met me at the heavy wooden exit doors. He took my hand, his warm fingers lacing through mine. We stepped out of the hotel and into the cool Boston night air. Behind us, the shouts and flashing cameras faded away into the dark. I took a deep, clean breath of the salty ocean wind, and for the first time in my life, I felt completely light. The fallout from the engagement gala was swift, brutal, and public. Within 48 hours, the local newspapers and business blogs were filled with headlines detailing the financial fraud at Miller and Company. Floral, the glossy image my parents had spent 30 years constructing, disintegrated completely under the weight of forensic truth. Legal action moved with quiet efficiency. With the certified audit report and the audio recording submitted to the court, my attorney, Amelia Cross, filed an emergency motion. The judge issued an immediate injunction, freezing all corporate bank accounts associated with my father's business and halting any further asset transfers. The bank's internal fraud investigation confirmed that my signature had been forged on the loan documents. The $350,000 commercial loan guarantee was declared null and void under fraudulent conveyance laws. My name was completely scrubbed from my father's business debts. My credit score began its steady climb back up from the gutter. Federal and state authorities stepped in shortly after. Facing mounting evidence of systematic tax evasion, wire fraud, and banking irregularities, my father surrendered his business license to avoid a lengthy criminal trial. The bank initiated foreclosure proceedings on Miller and Company. Floral, The prime retail storefront on Newbury Street, the expensive shop paid for with my stolen trust money, was locked, its glass windows covered in brown paper, marked with bright red auction notices. Sienna's online career evaporated overnight. Brands canceled her sponsorship contracts. Her followers flooded her comment sections with sharp criticism, and her agency dropped her. She deleted her accounts, packed her designer clothes into cardboard boxes, and took a job working the register at a suburban clothing store. The luxury lifestyle built on my stolen inheritance was gone. 6 weeks after the gala, my mother came to my apartment. She stood on the weathered wooden porch outside my front door. The polished, flawless woman from Newbury Street was nowhere to be seen. She wore an oversized dark coat that looked rumpled at the cuffs. Her blonde hair was pulled back into a messy bun, and deep gray shadows hung under her tired eyes. She smelled of stale cigarettes and damp autumn air, rather than her usual expensive rose perfume. Jax opened the door, gave me a quiet nod, and stepped into the kitchen to give us privacy. "Piper," my mother said, her voice thin and raspy. She didn't wait for an invitation. She stepped inside, her eyes darting around our small, modest living room. "You have to help us. The bank is taking the house. Your father is ruined. People are laughing at us in the streets." I stood near my wooden desk, keeping my hands resting lightly on the cool surface. "I didn't take your house, Mom. Dad's fraudulent loans did." "We are your family," she cried out, her voice cracking as tears welled in her eyes. She reached out, her trembling hand stopping just inches from my arm. "Can't you talk to your lawyer? Can't you tell the bank it was just a family misunderstanding? If you sign a statement saying you authorized the transfers, the criminal charges will go away. We can rebuild." I looked at her, searching her face for any trace of genuine remorse, any sign that she regretted what she had done to me. But there was none. She was not crying because she had hurt me. She was crying because her artificial world had collapsed, and she could no longer hide behind her illusion of perfection. A profound shift occurred inside my chest. The old, familiar ache, the desperate childhood that needs to be chosen, loved, and validated by my parents, simply vanished. It was replaced by a cool, unbreakable stillness. I no longer saw myself as a victim of their cruelty. I realized that my happiness was my own responsibility, and it would never depend on people who only saw me as an asset to be exploited. "No, Mom," I said, my voice soft, steady, and clear. "I will not lie for you. I will not sign anything." "You are cold," she whispered, her lips trembling with sudden rage. "You are destroying your own blood." "No," I replied, looking her dead in the eye. "I am refusing to burn myself alive to keep you warm. You made your choices for 30 years. Now you have to live with them." My mother stared at me for a long moment, realizing that her manipulation no longer worked. The gaslighting had lost its power. She turned around, pulled her dark coat tight around her shoulders, and walked out the door into the cold afternoon fog. I walked over to the door, turned the brass lock into place, and clicked it shut. The sound of the deadbolt sliding into the frame echoed softly through the quiet room. I leaned my back against the sturdy wood and closed my eyes. A deep, cleansing breath filled my lungs. There were no tears, no doubts, and no regrets. I was finally completely free. 1 year later, the crisp autumn wind swept across the rocky coastline of Scituate, Massachusetts. The afternoon sun hovered low on the horizon, bathing the Atlantic Ocean in a warm, amber glow. Long waves crashed softly against the dark granite rocks below, spraying a fine salt mist into the air. I stood on the observation deck of the historic Scituate Lighthouse, wearing a tailored cream knit sweater and dark trousers. The cool breeze carried the sharp, familiar scent of pine and salt water. Beside me stood Jax, his arm wrapped gently around my waist. He wore a heavy flannel jacket, his dark hair tousled by the wind. His hand was warm, steady, and solid against my hip, an anchor that had held firm through every storm. Life over the past 12 months had transformed completely. The chaos, noise, and deception of my past had given way to quiet, meaningful progress. Jax and I had combined our strengths to establish Reed and Finch Consulting, a firm dedicated to providing integrated technical and financial auditing services for small local businesses. Working from a renovated brick office near the harbor, Jax handled site infrastructure and electrical evaluations, while I managed forensic bookkeeping and financial restructuring. We helped local bakers, fishermen, and independent shopkeepers protect their livelihoods from predatory loans and accounting errors. The work was demanding, but it was honest. Every dollar we earned was built on transparency, skill, and mutual respect. For the first time in my career, my work was recognized, valued, and celebrated on my own terms. My personal transformation had reached its full fruition. The journey had required strict physical discipline, professional elevation, and a fundamental shift in my mindset. I had stopped looking back. I had stopped asking why the people who brought me into the world were incapable of loving me. I took full responsibility for my own happiness, my own peace, and my own future. My parents and sister lived far away from this peace, caught in the wreckage of their own making. My father worked a low-level administrative job in another state, his reputation as a wedding mogul permanently destroyed. My mother lived in a tiny inland apartment, still complaining to distant relatives about the life she had lost. Sienna continued her quiet shift work, stripped of her followers, her luxury cars, and her illusion of royalty. Yet as I looked out at the vast, open water, I felt no hatred toward them. I felt no urge to celebrate their downfall, nor any desire for revenge. Hating them would have meant keeping them inside my heart, giving them space in a life they no longer belonged to. Indifference was my ultimate freedom. I had forgiven myself for staying quiet for so long, and I had released them to the consequences of their own choices. The golden hour arrived. The sky exploded into brilliant shades of violet, rose, and deep gold. Sunlight danced across the crests of the waves like scattered diamonds. Jax turned to me, his dark eyes reflecting the warm light of the setting sun. He reached up and gently tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, his rough, calloused thumb brushing softly against my cheek. "What are you thinking about, Piper?" he asked, his low voice blending with the rhythmic hum of the ocean below. I leaned my head against his shoulder, breathing in the clean scent of ocean air and cedarwood. I looked out at the endless horizon, where the sea met the sky in a seamless line of light. "I'm thinking that for 28 years, I thought I was sitting inside a home," I said softly, a calm, unbroken smile touching my lips. "But I was just sitting inside a cage. And now I'm finally outside." I held Jax's hand tightly, feeling the warm pulse of life in his palm. I stood tall against the coastal wind, free, proud, and completely whole, surrounded by the golden light of my own new day. All shadows must fade before the truth, and every pain is simply the start of a beautiful rebirth. Always remember, the right to write a new chapter of your life is forever in your hands. Please like, share, and subscribe if this story resonated with you. Hope to see you on the next page.